the guidelines for preparing this Masterclass. Since this is the very first one, I really felt the freedom to make it my own. So I will tell you that the students did provide me with a copy of the syllabus from the fall of 1995 class. So I did start there in going through all the materials in the syllabus. But since that was a long time ago, I went through and looked for what spoke to me in terms of what was in the syllabus. So I'm just going to share with you, and I'm a big fan of not reading the slides because I know you all are capable of reading them yourselves, and that reading slides is what's been characterized as death by PowerPoint. So I really do my best to not create any death by PowerPoint here tonight and being able to do this. So this was one of the first parts of the syllabus that really struck with me in the context of what Barbara Jordan was hoping would be accomplished by participating in her class. So this part really resonated with me, and hence I added emphasis there. And this whole idea of defending our principles, knowing them well enough to be able to defend them, and how often are we finding a context where those principles are going to be challenged, and we're going to have to be able to do that. And I really resonated with the whole idea of think clearly first, and then be able to argue persuasively. And if you know anything about Barbara Jordan, we know that she was able to argue persuasively and being able to do that. The next part I looked at was the actual questions that she was going to be posing. And you can imagine that that syllabus can cover an entire semester. And I have you for 45 minutes to an hour. I would not cover the entire syllabus in that context. But so these were the concepts that stuck out to me and that I thought were particularly relevant here in the context of looking at 2025 and what are we wrestling with today. And this real focus on this whole idea of public officials and whether or not we hold public officials to a higher or a different set of values and principles in the context of doing their work. And then also looking at fundamental principles as they apply in the context of America. And how have those changed and evolved over time? And what do we value? And thinking about looking at a syllabus from 1995 in 2025. And in what ways have what we value changed over that time, and being able to do that. Now, resources in preparing for the master and preparing for tonight, what I found first was actually this book, Barbara Jordan, Speaking the Truth with Eloquent Thunder. And it's actually edited by the Dean, Max Sherman. And so I found this book, and it includes multiple lectures and speeches and addresses that Barbara Jordan gave. So very wonderful. And I actually believe it's for the students of Barbara Jordan. That is who it's dedicated to. And I thought, perfect tonight, in being able to do that. So you can see by all of the tabs, and if you went through, there's a lot of underlining. So I spent a lot of time with this book and the different speeches. And then Dean Sherman did a video where he was talking about the book and his relationship with Barbara Jordan. So that was very interesting and informative to be able to have that exposure also and being able to do it. And then there are lots and lots and lots of videos of Barbara Jordan on YouTube. And YouTube is my friend on being able to get out and find resources. So I did look at a lot of Barbara Jordan videos and history pieces and all kinds of information. And then I was able, so again, the syllabus is from 1995. And I was able to find 5 of the books that were actually used in the syllabus online. And I purchased all 5 of those books and read through the chapters that Barbara Jordan had assigned. Really thinking about what is the relevance of those chapters to my lived experience and what I would want to share with you all in class tonight and being able to do that. And I can see that the first three are the ones that I brought with me tonight and that I found the parts of that resonated with me and what I want to share. So given all of that, I decided that I wanted to take my 40 years of experience and think about my ethical leadership lessons that were brought up in reading through these materials and how those related back to the topics and the issues and the challenges that Barbara Jordan was posing in her classroom and being able to do that. So those are the 4 topics that I'm going to cover as we go through this. So you all are gonna know a lot about me by 7:30, maybe more than you ever wanted to know, but really think that I wanted to have that intentionality in reading all those lessons. So the first lesson is talking about the harmony between having personal and professional core values congruent with each other. And this really resonated me, as you're going to hear, because in spending all the time working on this, I realized that this congruence has really just been recent for me. And just having this full sense of both being congruent with each other and being very intentional about that. Now, I was here in November for my 40th reunion from the LBJ School. And I took that photo with the statue and very much didn't know I was coming back. You know, I did know I was coming back, but I also just thought that that was just really resonated with me to have that opportunity. Now, this is actually not in any of the speeches that are in the book, but Dean Sherman references in the book that this is the definition from Barbara Jordan of ethical behavior. I definitely thought that that was important, and that focus on honesty, truth-telling, and accountability was really important. And one of the speeches that's in the book is Barbara Jordan's address at the National Prayer Breakfast in 1984. And that really resonated with me because I thought it was really uplifting and supportive, and to think about ways in which Barbara Jordan's faith really infused her work and how important her faith was to her. So I would like to actually take some time to read through excerpts from that address at the prayer breakfast. And these were my takeaways from what I'm going to read to you. Would we behave as we do behave in word, thought, and deed if we truly believed that we are God's stewards on this earth? Would our policies, decisions be the same that they are if we were always consciously aware of our trusteeship role on the earth? Would our oversight responsibilities be sharper, more incisive, if we believed that we are God's caretakers? As a people with fused inner and outer selves, we eliminate the distinction between image and reality. We cease projecting shadows where substance is required. That person who is whole has a non-negotiable set of values, a non-negotiable set of principles. Core beliefs, they are advanced boldly. These core beliefs of this whole person include justice. Justice is the flagship principle. Justice is the overarching principle. Justice is fairness. Justice is equity. A belief in justice is very simple. Everyone is treated fairly by everyone else. This entitlement, entitled to be treated fairly by everyone else, this entitlement is so simple because it is right. Justice should be followed by just acts. This is a belief that justice should pervade personal and our institutional relationships. Tension between an inner and outer self is both wearing and worrying. The problem is that this tension does not have to be. Inner, outer can be one, should be one. They should be in such close relationship with each other that you can't tell where one leaves off and the other begins. They should be congruent. Our demonstrable actions reflect our inner reality. That truly resonated with me on so many levels that I'm going to share more about. The next one that I listened, that I watched and read again, was Barbara Jordan's keynote address at the Democratic National Convention in July of 1976. The first Black woman to give a keynote address at the Democratic Convention. And I was only 16 at the time, so it really didn't penetrate a whole bunch. But I even knew at the time that that was something significant that was happening. So I want to read a little bit from this, and in reference to this whole concept related to our responsibility as public servants. A nation is formed by the willingness of each of us to share in the responsibility for upholding the common good. A government is invigorated when each one of us is willing to participate in shaping the future of this nation. We as public servants must set an example for the rest of the nation. It is hypocritical for the public official to admonish and exhort the people to uphold the common good if we are derelict in upholding the common good. More is required. More is required of public officials than slogans and handshakes and press releases. More is required. We must hold ourselves strictly accountable. We must provide the people with a vision of the future. If we promise as public officials, we must deliver. If we as public officials propose, we must produce. If we say to the American people, it is time for you to be sacrificial, sacrifice. If the public official says that we must be the first to give, we must be. And again, if we make mistakes, we must be willing to admit them. We have to do that. But a spirit of harmony will survive in America only if each of us remembers that we share a common destiny. If each of us remembers when self-interest and bitterness seem to prevail, that we share a common destiny, I have confidence that we can form this kind of national community. Stand up and clap. Her words just resonate to me and just seem so important today as much as they were back in 1976. Yes, we need it. We need to hear it. I want to talk first about my personal core values in response to this and my pathway to having that harmony and that convergence between inner and outer. And even though I'm talking about today, I believe that I have to go back those, and I'm 65. Thank you very much. I just turned 65 in January. Needed my Social Security, Medicare, and all those things that come with being 65. I go back to my parents and my siblings and my family and words and deeds and values that shared with us that stay with us today. And I did ask my brother and sister if they would share some of their values, because we did grow up together, and I thought it would be helpful to me to see what kind of convergence and synergy we still had all these years later in terms of what we remembered and the values that we have from our parents that we still think about today. So these are the first ones, and I would highlight number 2 and know that share with you all that came from my mother. Very much a member of the greatest generation who really believed that her 2 daughters were capable of doing anything and everything, and that we had the freedom to go out there and be the best we could be and to not think that we had to be dependent on anybody else. That was reinforced with our grits every morning, that this is what we could do. And definitely the golden rule, to be able to treat people the way that they want to be treated, and being able to do that. Does anybody resonate with any, the number set, the top one up there? Understanding that we are African American, we're also citizens of the Muskogee Nation. My sister and I went to the predominantly white, that was the only Black student in my class for 6 years, or 7th through 12th grade at Holland Hall, which is the most prestigious private school in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so I had to I spent those 6 years as being the only student of color in my class, and had to contend with a lot in that context. But had lots of reinforcement around this whole ideology that I couldn't just be like everybody else. I had to be better. I had to work harder. I had to do more in order to succeed in that context. So that those lessons still stay with me and being able to do it. And number 10, sometimes doing the right and just thing means that you will stand alone. Do it anyway. Definitely reinforced gratefully by our parents. I have one of my classmates from Princeton here with me tonight, Burton. And this is from the former president of Princeton, and it came out definitely long after I graduated. We graduated in 1982. But the sentiments that are expressed there still resonate with me today. And I think they fit in with this whole sense of our ethical values and what she shared there. And being able to do that. Again, the common good, civil discourse, integrity, respect, aiming high. Yes. Being able to do that. And then I'm one of those people who keeps quotes on my refrigerator, because I consider it my soul food, like my soul, which is, in front of on the front of the refrigerator, which has the real food inside. And these are 3 of the ones that I keep on there, and being able to believe that I am reinforcing what's of value to what my values are and wanting to see them regularly in that way. And I am a member of the Church of the Restoration. It's the Unitarian Universalist Church in Tulsa. And if you would be kind enough to click again, and you can see here that our church was founded in 1987 to achieve racial justice and promote religious freedom. We're a progressive bunch of folk. We're very active. And actually, I believe that there were many churches that were founded in that time period through the Unitarian Universalist Association, and we're one of 3 that's left. So we're making it happen. And I actually, Reverend Gerald is not there every Sunday, so I actually have been bringing the message on the 3rd Sunday of the month for the last 18 months. And that has just really been an incredible experience for me to be able to do that and to share in that way. So I'm going to keep going, because otherwise I'm going to take time back. And just wanted to share with you the Unitarian Universalist values, and again see that convergence with values that I've already expressed in terms of what's important, and how grounded I feel and supported and uplifted by the values of my faith community. And as we said earlier, Barbara Jordan and I are both members of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And a big reason why we were formed was this whole focus in on wanting to be politically active. And one of the first big events that we participated in when the sorority was founded back in 1913 was a suffragettes march. So we have been out there on the forefront since our founding, being able to do that and knowing and understanding that Barbara Jordan is one of the greatest of the Deltas. So we definitely, she and Shirley Chisholm was also a Delta. So yes, we've been doing it a long time and being able to do that. And I am a member of the ACLU, and you can see that I became a member first in 2017. And that was related to seeing ACLU attorneys on the ground from the standpoint of being in the 2017 during the first Muslim ban, and being able to do that, and just thinking that I need to be supportive and a part of ensuring that they are there to provide that care whenever they need it. And in case you're not familiar with the ACLU, that's what the ACLU stands up for. And just really resonated with that cause and wanting that happen. And I am a very good voter, and you can go in and see. And the ones that have the little asterisks there are because they're local elections. And so you can tell that I voted, that I participated, but it doesn't show you the nature of the voting and doing that. But I still remember my dad taking me in to vote for the first time when I was eligible to vote. And that was a big moment in being able to do that. Okay, so now I want to go to my professional core values. And I took reference to this book here, Values and Public Policy. And the chapter in this book is talking about the economy and reshaping American values and that juncture. And they do have a section in here that talks about changes in work ethic and women's rights. Because again, this book was published in 1994 in the context of that. So they're talking about the late 80s and early 90s with respect to really focusing on these particular changes in American society. And just want to give a context with regard to having spent 10 years as a community investments vice president at our United Way. And I'm going to in November, a lot happened in November. I was named one of the Tulsa United Way legends. And because we were celebrating 100 years of being in the community. So they made a video. And so I'll show you the video, and that'll explain a lot in terms of, you'll see a lot of convergence here in terms of my values.
Let's start by just from the very beginning, how did you get involved in United Way? What brought you there?
Actually, I was a volunteer on the Venture Grant Committee. And at the time, I've been doing that for, I think, about a year and a half. And the position of fund distribution and agency relations vice president came open. It sounds like it would be a good opportunity and a good way for me to really continue to serve in the Tulsa community. What the agencies are doing and what they do is the foundation of Tulsa United Way, because it's the why we're here part. So I think that having a system in place that really assures people that there is important accountability for how their dollars are being invested is incredibly important. We also were instrumental in supporting the work being done around HIV/AIDS. And we had a member organization, Tulsa Cares, which was, doing that work. And at that time, there was a lot of discrimination and people were not being treated very well by many in our community who had HIV or AIDS. And so it was very important to me personally, and I think to our Tulsa United Way volunteers and our Tulsa United Way community, to say, what can we do to ensure that everyone is being treated with dignity and respect, regardless of what their circumstances are. I felt a personal joy in giving because when my father died in 1998, just 5 months after I had joined United Way, he had his hospice care provided by Hospice of Green Country. You can see I can still choke up about that experience, so many years later. My family's experience was made so much easier because people cared. And they had the skills and the ability to come in and provide that service for us as a family. And after that, my mother even served on the Hospice of Green Country board for several years as a way to say thank you and to support that service be provided to others in the community. And I think that it's really uplifting and still gives me a sense of joy that I was able to support that type of service being available for anyone who needs it in our community. Okay, thank you. I told you all you were going to know a lot about me by the time I'm done. So there it is. And being able to do that. So I'm going to speed up here. Let you know how long any of this would last, because this is brand new information and materials. So I'm going to. Okay. So I have had my company for 17 years. I left United Way. The reason why was I really wanted to be on my own and have the ability to provide and work with the organizations that really converged with my values and my focus on wanting to be more involved with more progressive causes in our community. And organizations like Tulsa Cares and Hospice of Green Country and the organizations that really resonated with me. So been very fortunate to be able to do that. So, and of course you can see here that, I focus on being ethical, effective, and inclusive in my work and the core values that I have for the company. And I am affiliated with BoardSource, and I did this because I think, again, there's that convergence between the organization I'm affiliated with and their focus on leading justly and creating a world where all can thrive in the context of that affiliation for me, being able to do that. And when I think about what I'm passionate about, it is really looking at inclusive workplaces and being able to work with organizations to help them create that kind of inclusion for their staff and being able to do that. And these are standalone workshops that I do, but I would also say that I really do incorporate inclusive practices into the strategic planning and board development and all of the work that I do. They may not realize it, but they're really getting inclusive practices as they go through all of the work with me and being able to do that. Okay. So I'm grateful that you can see that there's a lot of harmony and convergence between my inner and outer self in the context of the work that I'm doing today, being able to be in that space. So one of the things that was interesting in the context of reviewing these materials is to think about all these ways in which we are contending with values and ethics in different contexts of the work we do. And so I just want to go through here quickly. I've had worked for the city of Long Beach, California. So that was the first time that I really intentionally signed an, go to the next one, signed an ethics code. And if you want to go out there and take a look, if you're looking for a good ethics code, I like the one from the city of Long Beach because it actually says you're going to be accountable, and then gives you those examples of the ways in which you're going to be accountable. Because if you just say we're going to be accountable, it doesn't give people enough guidance to really know what they need to do. So I think that that's important. Tulsa United Way has a code of ethics, so I did sign that one too. And again, the public trust, ethical, honest, all these ways in which I've been on this ethical pathway. And again, to be good stewards of the funds, to be able to, if we can't operate with that public trust, we're not going to be in it. We're not going to be there. That's really important. And so I will tell you that one of the, I was with United Way for 10 years. One of the reasons why I chose to leave was the desire to work more specifically one-on-one with organizations, but also related to that feeling of my volunteer service and my political activity was being constrained. Because even though it says up there, political activity during working hours is not allowed, when you're an executive with an organization, you're always working. There's always that sense of being in a community like Tulsa. Everywhere I went, people knew that I was the vice president of United Way. It was just really difficult. Even on Saturday mornings at the grocery store, people would come up and be like, "Miss Linda, I want you to meet my child, and here, you meet Miss Linda." So it was just really hard to feel like I wasn't being constrained by that. So that was another reason why I said I want to be on my own, where I'm only having that responsibility and accountability to myself and being able to do that. The National Council of Nonprofits, since I do so much of my work with nonprofit organizations, the National Council of Nonprofits gives you a lot of the legal requirements for ethical nonprofit conduct. The IRS has regulations. You have to be operated for the benefit of private, not to be operated for the benefit of private interest. It is the public interest, the public trust. Does anybody remember something called Enron? Enron? Sarbanes-Oxley. Some people don't know and understand that two parts of Sarbanes-Oxley pertain to nonprofits: whistleblower protection and document retention. So it's important, and that's a concept that I'm constantly reinforcing to the nonprofits I work with, and being able to do that. And then looking at, you actually have to fill out, if you're not familiar with it, nonprofits do have to file a Form 990, and the 990 does have questions on it that pertain to board governance and covering these areas. So they do have to meet that ethical expectation, even though it is not something that they can be investigated for if they put a no answer to any of those questions, but it does create an opportunity for a red flag if you've got no's to questions that are in the context of board governance, to be able to do that. And many nonprofits do have a code of ethics, but it is not required by any state that a nonprofit have a code of ethics. Being able to do that. Okay, so keep going. Okay, so I do have a contractual agreement with BoardSource, and you want to keep going? No. Okay. One more. And again, that I'm signing in my agreement that I'm going to be demonstrating the highest standards, ethical practices, all of that alignment in terms of being a certified consultant by BoardSource and doing that. Being able to do that. Okay, so again, just reinforcing that it was interesting to sit down and realize all the different ways in which I am signing codes of ethics and agreeing to abide by particular practices. Not to brag or anything, but I was the president twice of the training organization, our chapter in Tulsa. And of course, we achieved the highest standards when I was president, and being able to do that. But again, ATD, you can give me another, go for another. I'm also saying in the context of being a trainer that I'm making these commitments in terms of my ethical practices and being able to do that. Okay. And then there's my choice to actually be in compliance with a donor bill of rights and the AFP Code of Ethics standards, because I am not specifically a fundraiser, but I do fundraising because it is one of the responsibilities of board governance. So some of the smaller nonprofits, the organizations I work with require me to do that. So I do have that voluntary compliance. And then I do serve as a District 1 representative on the Sales Tax Overview Committee for the City of Tulsa. And in so doing, I am required to sign the ethics code for the City of Tulsa and doing that job. So it was interesting to sit down and literally start looking through and seeing how many different ways in which am I signing some type of ethical agreement in terms of my conduct in order to do the work that I do. And then this next section, if you could, talking about inspiration from Barbara Jordan and going back. This whole idea again of being real, having the clarity of what your beliefs are and being able to argue persuasively given those beliefs. So I just want to talk briefly here about these three concepts, because I think that over the years that it has taken time for me to be comfortable with these three and how to manage this effectively. And so I have two examples that I want to share by way of demonstrating this. And the first one is why I found the format of the Racial Reconciliation Organization Symposium offensive. So note that I'm speaking specifically to the format of the symposium, okay? And so I want to read to you the letter that I wrote to the board members of the organization to try to, and you'll tell me when I get done if I was clear about my values and if I presented them persuasively. I think I did Barbara proud, but I'm going to read it for you. So it says, hello, everyone. I prepared the following comments regarding the symposium. I hope you will include them with the on-site speaker presenter evaluations. I'm sending these comments to you as board members of the organization that attended the symposium. So I knew which of the board members were actually there with me at the symposium. The Racial Reconciliation Organization's mission is to transform society's divisions into social harmony through the serious study and work of reconciliation. The symposium program states its mission was to engage in open dialogue that addresses the American history of racial violence and the potential for reconciliation. I believe that these missions must be accomplished in settings of equity, trust, mutual respect, and inclusion. Unfortunately, I do not believe the symposium's format fostered equity, trust, mutual respect, or inclusion. The symposium's format was hierarchical, with speakers in the first tier and presenters in the second tier. I believe the format was tiered because it directed all participants to listen to the speakers while providing concurrent sessions for participants to listen to their choice of presenters. The 5 speakers were all white men. In addition, the public portion of the symposium, which was the night before in the evening, in addition, the public portion of the symposium centered on the knowledge and perspective of 2 of the white men speakers. Therefore, I believe the format placed higher importance and value on the knowledge and perspective of white men. Given this belief, I was offended by the symposium's format. When I look at the format from the perspective of intent versus impact, I feel the following. It doesn't matter if you tried to have women speakers. It doesn't matter if you tried to have African-American speakers. It doesn't matter if the presenters were white men, white women, African-American women, and African-American men. It doesn't matter if the speakers did a good job of sharing their knowledge and perspective. It doesn't matter if I found value in each of the speakers' presentations. I believe the symposium format still characterized the knowledge and perspective of white men as more important and valuable than the knowledge and perspective of African Americans and women. The symposium format still made me feel that the knowledge and perspective of white men was better than and more important than the knowledge and perspective of African American and women. It still made me angry and sad. As an African American woman, it still made me feel that my knowledge and perspective would not be equitably valued in future racial reconciliation organization efforts. I do not believe reconciliation can or will occur in environments that appear to value the knowledge and perspective of one group more than any other group. So as you look towards the future, I encourage you to develop programs that are deeply rooted in formats that promote equity, trust, mutual respect, and inclusion. Did I do Barbara proud?
Did you did. What did they say?
They changed the format.
There's your answer.
Yes. Yes. They owned it. They accepted the difference between intent and impact. And yes. So we can make a difference with our voices, but we have to be clear. Was I clear about my position?
Yeah.
Was I clear in sharing what I perceived and how it made me feel? And what my expectation was, given the mission of the organization. And being able to do that. So yes. I think that's important. Okay. I had another example, but I'm going to skip over that one so that we can just keep going. I want to keep us on time. So again, keep going. Okay. Now I want to share 4 practices that I've learned over the years and most of these, I believe, I don't know that these 4 practices were really in our common understanding 30 years ago. I know for sure that a couple of them, because they're based on recent publications and research. So I just wanted to share those with you. Because in the first one, I'm going to reference back to this book on lying, moral choice in public and private life. And goodness, Barbara Jordan has her class read 4 chapters in this book. What does that tell you? The need to understand the role of lying and how that's showing up for folks and being able to do that. But it actually really resonated with this that's actually at the very end of the book. And I think it really resonated with me in this context of how easily trust and integrity can be broken. And how important it is that we have that foundation. And then I couldn't help but resist to put in from the book on Introduction to Ethics with regard to what the true definition of liberalism is. Because I think that you lose the true definition in multiple environments and over the years that it's changed in the context of that. But still resonating well with this. And I spent and I've done lectures for the flagship university in Oklahoma, the University of Oklahoma, and talking about my role as a transformational leader And in putting these materials together, I really realized that I'm not only a transformational leader, but I'm also an ethical leader. And that my ethics are foundations for the work that I do. So I really took this whole context around being an ethical transformational leader and being able to do that. And then putting those characteristics up there side by side and really being able to communicate that. So let me talk about this whole opportunity to change our perspective and thus change our experience. In this concept that was related to these 4 practices, because they really were perspective changing practices for me to adopt and being able to do that. So, has anybody heard of all 4 of these?
Growth mindset.
Okay. Well, I'm saying all 4. Has anybody in here heard of all 4? So you're gonna learn at least one new one. So that's great. Okay, so let's start with the platinum rule. And I know I was raised, because I said in the beginning, with the golden rule. Anybody else raised with the golden rule? Yeah, I'm seeing some hands going up. Okay. And if you think about the focus of the golden rule, you're talking about your expectations. It's really, pointing in and using your lens, your perspective, your values, your religious teachings as the foundation. So the focus is on you. It's looking in a mirror for your decision making. Okay. If we go to the platinum rule, we're changing our focus. And we are seeking to treat others the way they would like to be treated. And you can imagine that when you shift that focus, you're looking out that window and you're looking towards the other people in the context of your communication. And in doing all the research and understanding the origins of the platinum rule, this is the resource that I would point you to that is the one that I think is the foremost in the context of developing concepts around this and really looking at this whole area of ways in which we communicate and engage with people across culture in a respectful way and being able to do that. And then pulling it into the very practical side of looking at materials from Myers-Briggs. So taking it out of the academic, side and pulling it into the workplace and thinking about how we can apply the platinum rule in the context of our interactions with others in that space. So definitely, if you want a resource to think about it from that perspective, you check out that article from the Myers-Briggs company. And note as a reinforcer that I work with nonprofits, so I'm really intentional about finding resources available on the web for free. Because if there's one message that my nonprofits give me all the time is, Miss Linda, it needs to be free. It needs to be accessible. If there's charges for it, the chances that we're gonna go out there and get it are reduced. So really try to find the best materials possible for folks that are free and accessible. The next one I want to talk about is owning your impact. And you got a brief reference to that in the letter that I wrote to the Racial Reconciliation Organization. And this is actually my quote, because I do a lot of quoting from other people, but this one is mine. Many times that I have shared this quote, others do not have to live with the intent of my behavior. They have to live with the impact of my behavior. Owning my impact. So think about when your behavior hurts or marginalizes or oppresses other people. How often do we want to rationalize or excuse our behavior? And knowing that if we really want to own our impact, we have to acknowledge and accept the impact on our behavior. on others. So let's just get a little bit deeper into that. When we think about wanting to rationalize our intent, you're pointing to your behavior. And again, like the golden rule, the finger is pointing at you. What you thought, okay? And there's a lot of research and situational information that says oftentimes you want that comfort or that absolution for what you've done from the people that you've harmed. And wanting that to happen. But if you change your focus and move to accepting your impact, you are really putting the feelings and the experiences of the person who felt your behavior at the forefront. Being able to do that. And if you want to read a good article that talks about ways in which good intentions undermines relationships, then I would suggest this one for you. The next one is a growth mindset. And I know here at a university that this should be, the students, do y'all know about the growth mindset? Yeah? Okay. All right. Well, let's make sure everybody knows about it. Let's go here. Keep going. Sorry. Intelligence can be developed. It's not fixed. It's not you have it or you don't. You have the opportunity to develop it. And really looking at this expectation around our opportunities to embrace challenges, to learn from criticism. Oh, can that be hard? And to really find lessons and inspiration in the success of others, and to be able to do that. So again, sometimes it's hard to think of challenges as being exciting. Maybe they're exciting once you get through them, but yes, but really trying to have that perspective of thinking of them in that way is a chance to grow and to do more. And higher achievement in the context of how ways in which a growth mindset can drive motivation. And I put this one up here, and actually in a specific page reference, looking at these expectations around where a growth mindset really creates a thriving environment for people. I think it really resonates with ethical practices that we put forward. And it's going to dovetail very nicely with talking about psychological safety. And the Fearless Organization, has anybody read this book? I'm going to be selling some books tonight. These people, I mean, I don't have any, but I just think they are incredible resources. And really want to be an advocate for spreading the word out there with regard to what these can do. So we're looking at the definition of psychological safety and got several slides to break this down for you. And really looking at this whole idea of risk-taking, having a speak-up culture. Has anybody heard of having a speak-up culture? Where people see that there's something going on and they need to speak up and let people know about it. And understanding that Amy Edmondson's work was done initially in hospital settings, where it's really important for people to feel a level of psychological safety and being able to speak up if they see that something's going on. I don't know about you all, but I really want the people in the hospital to speak up if something's not right. And being able to have that feeling that they can actually trust and respect, and to feel that they can be candid in the context of what's going on and being able to do that. And if you think about the open and authentic communication, that occurs in a psychologically safe environment. Authentic communication is one of the characteristics of an ethical leader. So the opportunity to create environments where authentic communication is occurring is making that happen. And if you can make mistakes without fear of being punished or embarrassed. I think that whole idea of being embarrassed really inhibits people's ability to make contributions. And so I do a lot of work around psychological safety in the context I do around inclusive practices and how those can really contribute to helping people be in a position to be able to contribute fully to the environment that they're in. And then this is just the table that shows you all the different zones that you can be in. And give me another one. You want to be in that high psychological safety intersects with higher standards. And being able to explore this concept. And again, one of the resources that's out there is talking about that relationship between psychological safety and ethical conduct. And that really looking at that healthy organizational culture where if psychological safety is high, then your adherence to ethical standards is also going to be high. And then another free article, although you may have to sign up with the MIT Sloan Management Review, but you can read Fostering Ethical Conduct Through Psychological Safety. You don't want to get the whole book, but I still think it's a great book. And lots of free resources online too, in association with this. Okay, we're done. That is the content of the masterclass lecture part. So if you want to go a little bit more, and I will completely wrap up. Okay, so I did cover these, my leadership lessons, and inspired by those prepare breakfast and those lessons and the lessons from the Democratic National Convention. And I hope that I was able to resonate with demonstrating those in the context of my 40-year career. So, thank you all.